You're listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense with your host, Doug Thorpe. Here's Doug.
Hello again, everyone. This is Doug Thorpe and another episode of Leadership Powered by Common Sense. Today, we're going to get into the realm of learning and development, and it is an important area, or as modernly a lot of people have shifted the title, talent development. I think there's a lot of things, but my guest has a number of unique ideas to share with us, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion. Her name is Jolynn Ledgerwood, excuse me, get that out. Jolynn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, Doug.
Yeah, so if you may, give us a real quick sort of backstory on your journey to get to where you are today and what inspired you to do what you're doing now.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. I went to high school in Plano, Texas, just north of Dallas, and got average grades, wanted to go to college to be a nurse. And about my third year of nursing school, my dean pulled me aside and said, something's not right. Your tests, you're bombing all of them, but all of your projects and papers and everything else you're doing, and that's keeping you afloat. And so she had me tested, and I have a severe learning disability. And at the time, much to my father's unhappiness, I kind of saw myself making a choice. Do I work because that feeds me and gives me joy, or do I continue to struggle in nursing and trudge along and try to make that work? And so I took the path of least resistance. I stayed working in the restaurant industry and worked my way into a training role where I could travel across the United States and train other employees on their work. And then I moved into a management role where I was able to train managers to do their work. And I really see that as looking at what my disability was and where I struggled. How can I make it easier for other people? How can I make it easier for other people to learn? Because there's so many different adult learning principles, and there's so many different ways that we can create material and engage our teams so that the learning sticks, so that the learning is impactful and helpful to them. Being diagnosed with a learning disability at that point, my mom was just mortified. I'm so sorry, I didn't know. It wasn't a thing back then. It was, you're not studying right, or you're not studying hard enough. They didn't really look any further than that. And I was making decent grades. So that working in the restaurant industry kind of transformed me into, at one point, I looked at the whole concept of what we do in the restaurant industry. And I thought, what is the one area that I don't know that much about? And that was information technology, IT. So I went to that department, opened units, did the training there, and absolutely loved it. Unfortunately, there was a reduction in workforce. So that allowed me to kind of take a step back and figure what I wanted to do next, and ended up getting referred to a job in a voice over IP company. And then I went to cybersecurity. And all this time, it's been learning and development, training teams, whether it's sales, whether it's customer service, whatever that looks like. And I've always just loved working with the individuals, making them understand themselves, or allowing them to make themselves understand a little bit where they come from, what drives how their brain, innately works, and using various assessments here and there. And in my last reduction in workforce, unfortunately, training is always the first thing that they cut. My husband said, why don't you just do your own thing? Like, you love coaching, you love training development. And I made that leap and just said, okay, let's do this. And so it allows me to spend time with teams, which I enjoy, and also allows me time to spend with individual coaching, which I really love and see so much benefit in. Last year, I ran into an old friend of mine, and he's from Germany, and he introduced me to this Lego series play. And I thought, I've never heard of this before. What in the world? And there's 15,000 facilitators globally, and there's only 100 in the United States. And I thought, this is crazy. I think Americans love Legos. Like, why don't we bring this to the workplace? And so that's really where I've tried to bring play into the workplace, and allowing people to see that play equals engagement, playfulness equals and can equal productive results. And it's been a journey. Owning your own business is not easy. And it's been fun. I get to show my kids that, we can follow our dreams with caution and perseverance, I guess is the right word, but it's been fun. I look back and think, what if I had finished nursing school? I wouldn't have nearly the breadth of experience that I have now. And I love what I do. I enjoy coaching people.
That's wonderful and amazing. And you packed a lot in there, and a couple things we will try to unpack. Number one, I guess, speaking to my corporate listeners, your point that training is usually the first to get cut when there's a budget. And I've always said, how ironic is that? The very thing we need. And when we talk about management and leadership, inevitably, rare is the company that takes someone who's working as an individual contributor and say to them, we think we want you as a team leader. Let us give you this development work. We have a course, we have a coach, we have something to prepare you for this role. And like I said, rare is that scenario. Usually what they say is, we think you ought to be the next supervisor, and poof, it's done. And you might move cubicles tomorrow, and all of a sudden now you've got this burden of responsibility, have no flipping clue what that needs to be about.
Yeah.
You start cobbling together ideas, and you might do that 2 or 3 more times promotion wise. And then all of a sudden the company says, maybe we ought to get you a coach, or maybe we ought to send you to do some training.
If they even do that, unfortunately, that does happen a lot. And where I challenge is, just because they're a phenomenal individual contributor doesn't mean that they want to lead people. They may be so happy in just being that individual contributor. And I don't see conversations where, hey, you're really great, we would love to see you lead. Is that something you'd be interested in? Or what can we do to help you get ready for a position like that, because we think that you'd be so great at it? One of my jobs in a cybersecurity company, that's one of the things that we did, is I asked other people within the organization who wants to be on a training team and who wants to help train the new individuals that we have joining our company. And the best of the department wasn't always the one that spoke up. It was the one that enjoyed working with other people, the one that enjoyed the diversity that would then be in their work and the type of work that they do. And it was interesting. Again, the best person may not want to be a leader. They may not want to lead others. They may be perfectly content in the role that they have. And by forcing them to do something that you think they'd be good at, but they may not agree, it causes that disheveled, I'm not happy in my job anymore. And then they leave.
Well, I experienced that in a very big way. I was contracted to go into a large corporate entity, and they had a program they had developed for first-time managers, which, so kudos for that.
Yeah, that's great.
However, they didn't have anybody permanently ensconced that could lead that or do that, so they often would outplace it. And my name came up in the rotation, and I was invited to come. So I picked up their book, and it was a huge 3-ring binder of content, and good stuff to think about. So there was a 2-day seminar scheduled with all these first wave managers. And there were 60 or 80 people in the room. I mean, it was a big group because it was a big company, and they cycle this thing maybe twice a year or something like that. So I dive into the material. We get through the first hour and a half, and it was per the agenda. It was break time, so I called for the break, and this line formed at the podium. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is kind of early, but okay. And the very first guy says, if everything you just told us is what this job is about, I don't want to do it anymore. I want to go back to my former role. And I'm thinking, oh my God, okay. So I said, well, why don't you stand over here? Let me take these other people and see what it is, and I'll get back with you. And it turned out everybody in line had the same question, same issue.
Being a manager isn't great. Some people just don't want to do it.
Didn't want any part of it. So I got on the phone with my contact, and I said, Houston, you got a problem here.
Right.
So anyway, they all endured and survived. But I think it does indicate your point. Not everybody's cut out for that.
Well, and maybe going through the course, maybe that showed them that they were going to get the tools that they needed to use to manage the other people, or they were going to get further coaching, first part into the program where you're, maybe setting expectations or telling them what the job's, and they're like, I don't want. But as the coaching class probably continued, you were giving them the tools that they needed. You were encouraging them and telling them that they were chosen to do this and all those things. And some people are fed that way. Some people want to be given those opportunities, but there's also a good group of people that just are cool with their status quo. They want to keep doing what they want to do, and they don't plan on going anywhere else. And that's okay too.
I'm curious if I may also to your backstory there. What restaurant chain were you working for?
Sure. Brinker International. And
Okay.
at the time, I was working at Grady's, which is an older concept in Austin, Texas. But I also worked with On the Border, Maggiano's, Corner Bakery, Cozumel, if you remember Cozumel, several different restaurants doing different things within those restaurants, again, just to try to broaden my experience. And it was a great time. I enjoyed it.
The reason I asked, many episodes ago, I had a guest that was actually the training and development leader for Hard Rock Cafe, and that was a really interesting. As he said, they were proud of calling themselves a home for broken toys.
Hey, you know what? If it works, that's great. I love that.
And yeah, it was real enlightening to hear his from deep within, and anybody that's familiar with the Hard Rock brand, you go for the experience, not necessarily for the food. But,
Right. Exactly.
and he admitted it. He owned it,
Yeah.
and he said, "We own it. We try to do what we can to make it good, but
Yeah.
we know we're not the best burger in town."
Right.
So
But they've got the best view of, if you're going to sit in a restaurant and look around at things, that's where you should be.
right, right. So let's talk about the Lego play idea. First, I guess, share with everybody, if you may, just a summary of what that means and how it's deployed.
Sure. Yeah. So it started many, many, many years ago, early 2000s, where people from the Lego group started developing this educational piece. I think they were calling it Lego Serious Play at the time. I don't recall. And as they were developing it, they kind of had this realization. They're like, no, we don't want to be in the education space. We don't want to do this. We want to continue to focus on play. And one of the creators of Lego, family member, I think grandchild, Robert Rasmussen, and then another gentleman named Per Christensen, both of their families are from the Lego Corporation. They continue to work on it. They continue to modify the sets and make them. They believed in the power of play at work, and so they continue to mold the process and create the facilitation certifications and all the things. And so now it's kits that you can order online. And there's there's the Association of Master Trainers that can train you and will certify you, and that's the certification I went through. There's another group that does certifications that are not as rigorous or challenging, and they're not technically approved by the Association of Master Trainers, but it's just using Legos at work is fun. The Lego Series Play method is it's very methodical. It's very regimented, and we start with this build, and then we add more Legos, and we can add this build, and then we do this as we go through. There's different builds, and there's different questions that we ask as we go through. So we start with, when was the last time you played with Legos? Open up this bag. It's a small bag of Legos, and they're specifically created for this purpose. So open up the bag, get yourself familiar with the Legos that you have. And, when was the last time you played with Legos? And most people are like, oh, it's been years ago. Or, my daughter plays with them all the time. And I'll ask, do you ever play with your daughter with the Legos? Oh, no, I just let her do her thing. And then, and to see that shift in their brain of, oh, well, I can totally play with my kid with the Legos, and it's a whole lot of fun. But back to the methodology, it's a 4-step process. We ask a question, they build, they share, and then we all reflect. It allows the individuals the chance to use their hands when they're thinking, and that unlocks 80% more of your brain, which is awesome. And as you build, you'll see their subconscious kind of come up, where I'll ask questions about the build, and they'll kind of look and they'll say, I didn't even think about that. It must mean blank. And we start to uncover some of those things. If you're in the room, you're building. Whether you're the CEO or the admin or the janitor, if you're in the room and wanting to take part in the process, then you're building with us. And everybody's build is always right. Where when you're in a conference room and people are brainstorming, some of those may not be right. And so to allow people the opportunity to build, which so many people nowadays are more tactile, allowing them to build and allowing them to, and then discussing what they built and why, it really opens up the brain to talk more about, I didn't realize that you thought that way, or that's a great insight. I never really looked at things like that. And it can work from kids ages like 10 all the way up to 100. If you can build, you're part of the group, and it's a process. Yeah. We go in with an intent of what are we going to accomplish here? Are we just team building? Are we trying to find a strategic solution? Are we discussing the departments in our siloed organization? What is the goal of our workshop? And then as a facilitator, I create questions and the flow of the workshop so that leads us to the solution finding. Yeah.
Well, also in your material that you shared with me, kind of prepping this, one of the big things that caught my eye was the whole idea of pivoting the use of meeting time. How many people go through their workday back-to-back meetings and nowadays back-to-back Zoom calls or Teams calls or whatever. And you end up you kind of think back of your time spent today, and you say, well, 90% of that feels like wasted effort, wasted time. That meeting was not productive. I don't know what we were trying to do there. And these are leaders talking, not necessarily the rank and file.
Yeah, it's crazy because as Americans, we believe like we have to stay in this box of work and we can't do anything else other than that work from 8 to 5. And with everything that's happened in our world, COVID, political changes, all the things, people are getting just burned out with just sitting there trying to think of a new solution when we've done this for weeks and we don't have a new solution. Like, why are we still meeting in the boardroom to talk about that? We're not getting anything done. And again, a lot of people are very tactile. By bringing in the Legos and by talking about and a meeting ahead of time with the leaders, talking about what the end goal is going to be, and showing the questions that we ask, and then they're in there and seeing the progress that we're able to make, it's transformational. Like, I've never gotten out of a workshop and somebody being like, oh my God, that was so boring. Being allowed to play at work is fun. It's encouraging. It allows everybody a seat at the table. So when you have super strategic Steve in the boardroom and super quiet Sally not wanting to talk, and Steve is just like taking over with Lego Serious Play, everybody has a voice. They all are on the equal playing field. So that allows Steve to build whatever he wants in whatever grand fashion he wants to. And it also allows Sally a chance to build and for us to hear what she has to say. Everybody's speaking. Everybody has a chance to speak and share their models and ask questions about other people's models and what they mean by this or that. It's really, like I've said before, it's transformational. To sidestep, I used to work in sales training with a cybersecurity company, and this happens very often in any sales organization. They do a sales kickoff at the beginning or the end of each year, trying to tell, this is our new initiative, this is our new logo for the year, we're going to go out and sell great big things. And you're taking people that are usually on the phone or traveling to visit customers that are nonstop and plopping them down at a conference table and making them watch slides and listen to people, and they zone out, they have no interest. And I noticed that early on in my sales training career. And so I brought, at the time it was Play-Doh jars for everybody at each table. The next day, I got lots of, what, really, Jolynn, why would you bring us Legos? Well, not Legos. Why would you bring us Play-Doh? That doesn't make any sense. Just play with it whenever you want to. It's not for an activity. It's just for you to keep yourself busy. The number of people that stayed in their seats and were engaged in the conversation and playing with the Play-Doh at the same time was so impressive. And it kind of proved the point that we can't take these people that are high energy and just throw them in a conference room or throw them at a sales kickoff meeting, not doing anything. They need to keep themselves busy. That keeps them engaged. That keeps their brain interacting with everybody else. Otherwise, they're just sitting there doing nothing, and they're bored, and they're thinking about all the sales that they're missing out on and calls that they need to take. And by giving them something to do physically, it releases some of that energy. So whether it be Play-Doh at conference tables, or maybe you bring Legos in to use at conference tables to keep people engaged, it's a really a great way to encourage that thought process that they're having as they're building.
The the domain that was once team building has generally, from my perspective, taken on a negative connotation. I mean, the trust falls and the ropes climbing out in the woods and all of those kind of things. I mean, I think they have their place, but to your point a moment ago, the quiet Sally, you put her in that environment, she's generally just more intimidated
Mhm.
and goes into a deeper hole rather than being brought out and encouraged to blossom in the moment.
Yeah.
And so I think it is so important that we rethink our approach to these kind of moments because let's face it, it is time consuming to dedicate to do this. So if you're not going to get high value return on it,
Mhm.
why are you doing it?
Right. And not everybody is energized or fed by those type of team building events. There are some that are, but like you said, if Sally's not talking a lot at work and we throw her under a ropes course and force her to help lift her co-worker Steve up the, whatever that looks like, or even the whole, hey, let's go to a bar and play top golf or putt putt or whatever that, no shade to top golf. We love going there, but to force employees and teams to go there to team build when you may have people like myself when I earlier in my career, I have young children. I can't go. And it doesn't mean that I don't want to participate and that I don't believe in team building because you know what? I would love that. But I've got kids at home that need me and I need to take care of them. And so there's that struggle of, you know, I'm trying to grow my career and I'm trying to do really great things, but I have my family at home and my kids. So when we bring play into the workplace, when we're there anyway, and we bring play into that team meeting where, you know, I have met with the leaders ahead of time. We've talked about what the goal is going to be, and maybe it's to, further define what impact we want to make in this next year. And you invite them to that room, and then they walk into the room, and the room is just filled with colorful Lego bricks and they kind of take a step back and they're like, is this the right room? Yes. And the leader's able to say, we're going to play as we solve this complex issue. And a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not creative. And oh, I don't play with Legos. Like, come on, we've got work to do. If they've already committed the time to being there, when they start building and when they start realizing that their builds are right no matter what, that everybody gets to build, you see that level of trepidation and like just you see it just kind of lower and then they're totally engaged. The people that boo-ha at the beginning are always the one that are most encouraged at the end. But then you're able to walk away and go, okay, we were more engaged with each other. I know a little bit more about my teammates or a lot more about my teammates, which is awesome. And we finally accomplished that goal. We finally answered that question that we've been trying to answer for so long. It's just yeah, it's a great way to kind of break out the boring monotonous work. We call it hard play because you're still accomplishing goals, you're still answering questions, you're not just on a whim, just it's not play day with Legos all day long. It's intentional play and it's strategic in how we answer the question, how we ask and answer those questions. We can add to our builds, we can take away from our builds and build new. There's flexibility in that. And then there's an opportunity where we can bring our builds together and link them in different ways to discuss, how one impacts the other or if there's an impact or not. And it becomes a group dialogue where everybody is contributing, where they can be persistent in pieces of their build that they want included, or they can kind of back a little bit and say, you know what, I like that piece of your build. I think fits better in this situation. And it allows more free thinking than just sitting in the boardroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had my own experience a little bit in the gamification of this process. The John Maxwell Leadership Group has a leadership game that they play, and I mean, it looks like a classic box game, that you might play on a Saturday night with your family. There's cards and there's dice and there's stuff you do, and every time I've had a chance to do that with a leadership team or a group of employees, it really is there's all these revelations that come out because you were you were effectively peeling whatever onion of individual personality or group dynamic that's going on. You kind of peel away the layers of that, the surface junk that gets in our way, and you get down to the real core meaning of something. And it allows people to go, really? I didn't know you thought that way. Okay, let's do
Absolutely.
this. And
Yeah.
that becomes an incredibly valuable takeaway from those kind of experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And hearing somebody say, I didn't know you felt that way. That person probably never had an opportunity or never had a chance or didn't know the right words to say, hey, wait, can I share my feelings about this? That was never an option. And by playing those games and by being involved in a different way, opens us up to being more of our authentic selves, and it allows us to be more engaged in the work that we do. I think that's extremely important. So
Well, oh, go ahead and
I
get
was
it.
just going to actually reference back. You said something earlier about the trust fall. I was writing a newsletter and I wanted to include a picture of the trust fall. So I went into my handy dandy AI and I said, please portray a picture of a trust fall. And I'm not kidding. Both times that I did it, the group is standing on one side and the trust fall person is falling away from the group, not with the group. And I thought, thank you, AI. Like that's exactly how these things shouldn't happen, but it's unfortunate that they do.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting that the AI brain looks at it that way now. Uh,
Right.
well, let's get a little bit philosophical, if I may, for a minute. You made the statement, we think about work in the boxes and play is outside of the box. Where do you think that comes from?
My guess is just, I mean, I look back at my dad when my dad and my mom were working, they went to their jobs full time every morning, every night. Mom would be mortified if one of us kids got sick while she was at work because she had to take a sick day. Like work was that important. And that just, it was so important to maintain work. And that was instilled in my brain. And I can only imagine many people, others, the flexibility of working at home wasn't an option. The flexibility of owning my own business really wasn't that much of an option. I either worked for a large startup company or worked for a large company, or I tried to create something on my own, maybe, and then tried to make that work. I just think that for some reason, Americans are so programmed that work is work, fun and rest is not allowed at work. Where I look at our counterparts, and to me, the 15,000 facilitators overseas versus 100 here, you hear Italians, they enjoy wine during the day while they're working or not working, and they take naps. And, Europeans seem more calm and centered around their family personal lives than they are around their work lives. And I think our work has just sort of kind of become our identity for so many people that if I'm not productive at work, then I'm not going to be seen as valuable and maybe I get laid off or whatever that looks like. And the opposite of play is not work. The opposite of work is useless activity that doesn't move us in any direction. So when we can encourage play at work or playfulness at work, we're increasing engagement, we're increasing retention, we are increasing problem solving skills, we're increasing team bonding, where again, I didn't know you were thinking something like that. That's great. Like that gets to know my team members a little bit more, and it allows me as the person that built that had never expressed those feelings to be seen. I get to be seen for the contribution that I bring to the group. I'm not just enter title here. I'm part of this bigger team and I want to contribute to more. And I know a lot of people say, the people I work with are just like family. Not everybody can say that. But when we have the ability to engage ourselves at work in a more meaningful way, maybe we can start saying that a little bit more, and we can start caring a little bit more about each other and about the work that we do and making a difference in that way, not just sitting at the conference table.
As you were saying that, I'm thinking back, this is many years ago, and in my early chapter of professional life, I was a banker, and when I went into banking, we were the classic, blue suits, burgundy ties, big giant mahogany desk kind of bankers. And we weren't overly formal, but nonetheless, it was, kind of that environment. And I'd been at this organization for a number of years, and then all of a sudden, the calendar page was turning, and our chairman wanted to have a kind of an all hands town hall type meeting. And so we got this big facility, and he got up on the podium and he was talking about, the budget and the plan for the new year and all these goals and objectives and da da da. And he had this agenda. He said, I'm going to talk to you about 4 big objectives for the new year. And so, flip the slide, something about revenues, flip another side, something about products, flip another side, something about customer experience. And then flip to the last side, it said, have fun. And with a big exclamation point. And everybody in the room, it just like the whole what?
Right. Like, wait,
what do you mean by that?
You're saying that this is okay now? Like, what are you talking about?
This is and there was an irony in that this guy was more stoic than anybody in the room, and for him to be the one saying that, it number one, I think for many it wasn't even a credible goal. It was like, not no from you, no, we're not going to do that. But as it did turn out, he was very committed to that idea. And
go ahead, I interrupted. I'm sorry.
And as the year went on, I mean, there were things and events and things we did, and we were challenged, we did have a tradition of having a weekly officer meeting. We were still small enough as a bank in our headquarters. We could have this officer meeting. Now, that was still about 300 people in an auditorium, but it was every Friday morning like a religion. If you were on the property on Friday at 8 o'clock, you needed to be in that meeting if you were an officer of the bank. And but even at those meetings, there was always some mention of, are we having fun? What are you trying to do to create fun? And we're like, this is interesting.
And that's great. What does it say about that presentation and that impact on you when you have no idea what any of those other slides said? The only one that you can recapture today is the one that said have fun. And you're like, wait, really? Like, wow. To be given the permission to have fun at work is really the starting point, is really where we say it's okay to play ping pong or to sit with a coworker and play jacks. Whatever that looks like to y'all. Having that space and being allowed to have fun is really kind of the first step. A fellow play practitioner shared with me yesterday Mary Poppins quote: "In every job that must be done, there is an element of fun. You find the fun and snap, the job's a game." And when we have fun at work and when we enjoy what we do and we enjoy and understand the people that are around us, we are more engaged. And we're more productive. We don't want to leave. We're not looking for another job. And if another job comes along or somebody's trying to steal me away, I can say, no, thank you. Like, I'm really happy here. I'm doing great things. I'm contributing. And I can easily say that's the way it should be. But still, there's so many companies that just see Lego Serious Play as just a frivolous activity. And when you can use them for a purpose and when you can use them for intent, the applicability is really endless. I mean, you could do anything you wanted to with them. And good for your bank guy, because that's back in those days, that was not a thing. That was
no.
Especially in the banking business, we're here to work. My dad worked in banking for years, and you're right. He wore the suit every single day. Yeah.
Well, and I can't say it was directly related, but it wasn't long after that announcement that it might have been a year or two, but we started entertaining the whole Casual Friday idea, and then Casual Friday turned into slacks and a golf shirt all the time,
Right.
and here we are, So, well, one last thought. I'm going to ask you, Jolynn, you did kind of allude to it, all the many things that have happened in our work world since COVID and rethinking. I have an overarching theme that I want to share and ask you about, and that is that pre-COVID, a popular buzzword in training and development was this idea of work-life balance. And what I observed ultimately, people struggled with even that. And it wasn't just the struggle of finding whatever that meant and making it work, but it was a real key question. What does that really mean? And because it ended up implying it's a trade-off. If you're going to have this balance, it's going to be okay to stop work and go deal with your family or go deal with your sick child or whatever. And even that ended up, I think, evolving with some connotation that wasn't good. But just the forced change that COVID gave us all, I believe people started into the reality that this work-life thing, whatever it is, needs to be more of a harmony because both are happening at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't cut one off for the sake of the other. Because we proved it during COVID, mom or dad or both were working at home while the kids were at home trying to go to school. And so you had all this concurrent event happening, and it needed to be more of a harmonious solution rather than a either or.
Yeah, if someone could have given us a notice that that was coming, that would have provided a lot of us the tools and the time to be ready to teach our children, parent our children, and still work a full-time job. But yeah, work-life balance is tough. I was a single mom for many years, and I was working to try to drive my career forward. There were times where I had to cancel a call at the last minute because one of the kids got sick. And I remember distinctly saying to myself, okay, I'm going to have to stay up and work later to get my work done, or I'm going to have to stay and work later to get my hours in. And when we stop and when we can just say, I've hired you to do a job and I'm trusting that you're getting the job done. These are the metrics that I need met on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And if those aren't being met, we're going to have a conversation. If you find that you need help, let's have a conversation. But otherwise, just do your job. Like, being allowed that freedom was amazing. I worked for an older gentleman at another company, and if you were not in your seats working at the office 8 to 5, then he was just like, where is she? Why isn't she here? And my boss would, well, she's at home. She's got a sick kid at home. Well, she needs to be here to get her work done. And COVID allowed us to say that's not the case anymore. We do, and we can
Right.
be cross-functional. I'll be the first one to say it was hard at COVID. I have 5 children, and they are all different grades. And to try to figure out what each of them needed throughout the day and keep them busy so that I could then work, it was challenging. It was hard. But I also look at that and say, I'm so grateful for that time because I was able to integrate work and show my kids what it looks like when I work. And my husband was able to show the kids what it looks like when he's working. And if you need something, you need to interrupt mom and not dad, which is a whole nother level. But it allowed us to really open up and see what are we capable of and what can we do. It is cringe to me when companies are now forcing people to come back to the workplace when we did prove we don't have to do that. If there are team meetings or engaging exercises that are being done, people are going to want to come back anyway. They may not need the forced push to come back. I think through COVID and through so many of the other changes in our worlds and people losing jobs so drastically, so quickly, and not being able to find anything new for months, if not years, a lot of companies are saying, well, I shouldn't invest on team development if I just let go all of these people's friends. And that's when I challenge and say, no, that's exactly when you need to do team building and team focus, because you want them to recognize that they are of value and they're staying and you need their work and their input and all those things. That is the perfect time to engage your team and the perfect time to embrace and say, that was awful. I didn't like doing that, but for the benefit of the business, we had to. Let's get together and discuss now who does what, how do we get all the things done with a fewer team, and let's build and let's talk about what those builds look like. And yeah, work-life balance, it means something different, I think, to everyone. If there could ever be like a Webster's dictionary meaning, that would be amazing, because I think it's different for everybody. If you're a mom, it means handling your kids and your work at the same time. If it's a dad, It means working and then maybe helping if mom can't do it. And that doesn't apply to all, don't get me wrong, because there's a lot of dads that take care of their kids full time. I think inviting work to play, it keeps us engaged and keeps us wanting to do more in what we're doing. And these sessions can be either remote or they can be on site, and they're equally impactful either way.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point to wrap this up. And I really appreciate you sharing this, Jolynn. Tell people the best way to get a hold of you if they're interested in knowing more.
Yes, absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn, Jolynn Ledgerwood, and then on email or my website. My website is elevateyourtalent.co, and you can find different ways to contact me there and more information about our Lego series play.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, as always, folks, we'll have those links in the show notes, so feel free to hop down, mash the button, and get a hold of Jolynn if you'd like to know more. And if you want to host one of the Lego play sessions, you'll, I think, really be amazed at what you can get from it. So good work. Well, I do like to remind you as well that we have a video version of this show over on YouTube, channel by the same name, Leadership Powered by Common Sense. And go over there, check out our archive. But we've already done 400 episodes, and I think you'll get a lot of value with guests I've had, much like Jolynn here today. But I think for now, that's it. I'm going to sign off, say goodbye. Go out there and make it a great day.
You've been listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense, hosted by Doug Thorpe. If you would like to know more about the coaching and advisory services he provides, visit dougthorpe.com.